All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We've had a really wonderful pair of segments to open, focusing on sports journalism and broadcasting, talking a little bit about the recruited athlete. And now we're going to turn to the financial corner of things and talk a little bit about award letters. So joining us to do that is one of our newer colleagues on the finance side. We've got Wally Boudet here joining us. Hey, Wally, how are you?
I'm great, Ian. Thanks for having me on.
And I haven't had a chance to meet you yet in person because I missed our big team meeting that we had back in June. But I understand you're down in Louisiana, and your background in college finance is also from some universities in the New Orleans area. Is that correct?
I started actually as a lowly Perkins loan clerk at the University of New Orleans back in the eons ago, it seems, and I eventually moved over to Loyola University, New Orleans, and was promoted all the way up to director. Left there and have worked with other associated jobs since then.
Gotcha. So you've seen the full range of things in the college finance space, and I imagine at one point your signature was on the bottom of these award letters, right? Letting students know exactly what they were going to be offered in terms of financial aid. So for those folks who maybe haven't been through the application process with an older student, might be entering it for the first time this year, can we just talk a little bit about award letters, what they include, and how they arrive either at a student's doorstep or in a student's email?
Great question. Great place to start. So an award letter is, some may consider it to be the golden ticket. It's the notification from the school indicating all of the different sources of aid that the student is receiving. Now, once the student was admitted, they may have received notification from the admissions office about a merit or scholarship offer. Mm-hmm. There may have been some other offers of aid coming in elsewhere. The award letter combines all of the different sources of funding that a student is going to receive as a notification. In many cases, it's also going to include the cost of the school, meaning cost of attendance, which is tuition fees, room, board, books, everything on there. And in an ideal situation, it will also calculate a gap between the amount of aid that was offered, regardless of the type of aid, and any financial gap that may be available. Some schools go ahead and package a parent loan to fill that gap. Mm-hmm. That for an experienced person, someone like myself, I feel that that's undesirable.
Okay.
More so, I would prefer that the school lists options that are available to families to fill the gap, with that parent loan being one of them. So it really is an all-encompassing notification of what the student is receiving from the school. Now, in the best case scenario, the student has gone out, or the family has gone out to the financial aid website of the college, and they've completed the net price calculator, and that net price calculator has given them a pretty close estimate of what they may be receiving. However, this is the final thing. Obviously, It's open to potential revisions based on a change of circumstances or anything else, but this is the final deal. This is it. Okay. Yeah. In a case such as with loans, family may have the opportunity to decline a loan, or they may have the opportunity to reduce a loan or anything like that. So there may be some actions that are necessary, responses that are necessary from the student. But this is the financial picture as it shows, meaning money being offered and potentially money that may be due to the school.
So a lot of complex pieces, moving parts in this space. Surely all award letters have exactly the same format with exactly the same language on it, right?
It's incredibly exasperating to see the variance. And in fact, there was some federal motion a few years ago to provide more commonality, or to force more commonality as far as what schools should include on it. But as far as how it's displayed, there is no commonality. It could depend on the school's software. It could depend on the graphics designer at the school. It could depend on a plethora of items.
what they choose to bold, what's underlined, how big the font size is. You're going to get 10 different award letters from the 10 schools that you got into and have to make sense of all of them on their own.
And chances are none of them will be identical. So yes, you'll have to decipher each one potentially. Yeah.
Everyone is just a special flower in the wilderness. I want to ask you, before we talk a little bit more about award letters, I want to back up to what you said about the net price calculator, because often families are going through that net price calculator earlier in the process to try and identify, right, what they think that the expected family contribution will be at given schools.
Sure.
Do you recommend that people take a screenshot or download that net price calculator, figure out what the final report is there, and then save that somewhere? Or should they just get the information and write it on a piece of paper and then move on?
That's an extremely excellent point, Ian, and I would recommend that they go ahead and take a screenshot of it and save it. There may be some situations where a school's packaging philosophy or institutional methodology, which is the school formula for determining students' aid or need-based aid, may change midstream. And I think that would be a valid point to go back to the school to say, look at the difference between this and this. Now, with that being said, there is a requirement that every school have this net price calculator out there on their website, but there's not a requirement that schools keep it current. Okay, schools that only use federal methodology, they may just buy this package from some software provider.
Yeah.
And they've got it out there and we fulfilling the regulation, the requirements were good. On the other hand, a school that uses institutional methodology, meaning that they create their own formula,
yeah,
it would be detrimental if they didn't provide an updated version of that as they change their formula or anything like that. So in a federal methodology scenario, whereas they're just using the information from the FAFSA,
right,
it's pretty cut and dry, because there's no variability with that.
Yeah.
Institutional methodology, yes, absolutely. You would want to take a screenshot of that. And if there are significant discrepancies, maybe bring it to the school's attention.
That's great. That's great. So let's say you've done your homework and you've got your net price calculator and you've taken your screenshot because you're excellent at record keeping, but this award letter comes in and it's hard to make sense of, and there's no key to explain it to you. Are you on your own, or can you seek help in understanding this? And for those out there who maybe are listening to you and they like your expertise, Wally, but they don't have your direct phone number, they can't call you up and say, well, can you explain this award letter to me? What do most families do to make sense of an award letter in a circumstance like this?
That's a great question. And that's something that for many families may be difficult.
Yeah.
Financial aid offices, especially at large public institutions, the counselors that deal with the in-person counseling and advising and stuff like that, it may be weeks or months in order to get an appointment for that. Obviously, if you've got access to a college coach, that's your best case scenario, because
of course
we've actually had families upload documents to it in preparation for a meeting so that we can talk apples to apples on a call. Aside from that, I think that they're just going to have to be very diligent in investigating the different aspects of the award letter. As mentioned, a merit offer should have been explained to them earlier. So that may not be a situation, but any other offer, gift aid that's calculated as a portion of the need base or anything like that, eventually you're going to want to get a direct from the source explanation from the school's financial aid office. If you can't get in touch with the financial aid office and you've worked with an admissions officer at the school, get in touch with the admissions officer, because especially if that admissions officer views you as a prize, as someone that they want to keep, they're going to work with you to make sure that you know what the bottom line deal is. But it all depends on accessibility. Families, please try not to go to Facebook. There are some groups out there that are really interesting, but I cringe daily. I view them just to see where I might contribute, and I try to avoid contributing, but I cringe daily because of the commentary on there. So, yeah, try to go to the best case source, which may be the financial aid office, college coach, maybe even a state higher education office.
Okay. Okay. And then is there any way, you mentioned that these schools that use the federal methodology, their net price calculators are going to be pretty cut and dried. There's not a lot of customization that's happening in that space. Let's say I'm applying to 3 schools, all of which use only the federal methodology. I submitted the FAFSA. Should I expect consistency across those award letters, if not in terms of the method of reporting that information, in terms of the way that they determine my EFC and what they're saying?
Using federal methodology, the EFC is going to be equal at all of those schools. Okay. What may be different, though, is the school's financial packaging philosophy.
Gotcha.
Some schools may agree to meet X% of need-based aid eligibility with gift aid, meaning a grant. Other large public schools may not have that financial flexibility. So speaking with a client this morning. In fact, I was speaking with the prospective student, not with the parents, and we went through an example. If your EFC is this and the cost of the school is this, if the school has no additional financial resources to give you gift aid, you're only going to qualify for this loan, or maybe work study. Okay. But it all depends. It goes back to the philosophy offered by the school as to what's what. And there again, there's no uniformity from school to school. I think it's fairly safe to say that a public institution is going to have less flexibility with gift aid than a private.
Yeah.
Okay. But there again, there may be some pockets of money for students that are pursuing specific degrees or anything like that may produce it. So there again, no, there's not necessarily any reason to expect uniformity across the board.
I'm going to ask you kind of an odd question, but when you were the director of financial aid at Loyola, did you ever see award letters from other schools and have people come to you and say, how do I make sense of what Tulane is giving me or what University of Texas is giving me? Do they bring those stuff to you ever and say, well, I understand yours, but not these other ones. Help me figure out this.
My time in the financial aid office was pre-Facebook, pre-social media, pre all of this stuff. And so the outreach may have been a little bit different. No, we never used to really handle that. In today's age, we are recommending in many cases, if they've received an offer from a competing school that is more advantageous from their number 1 school, that they use that as a negotiating tool. Okay. Yeah. Now, you want to make sure that they're truly an apples to apples comparison, that the 2 schools are equal, that they may be cohorts, anything like that. But absolutely positively use that to your advantage to negotiate a better deal, because if the school really wants you and has the capacity to, they're going to help you out, or they may help you out.
And that's a great way to whet the appetite of our listeners, because we will certainly have some segments on negotiation, especially as we get into the spring and those award letters start to come back. So Wally, I love that cross promotion of future episodes of Getting In. And I want to thank you for coming on this one and talking us through the award letter process.
Hey, great. Glad to, Ian. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Folks, that does it for today. We've got an awesome show coming up next week, kind of a special treat. We've got a couple of people from Duolingo who are going to come on the show and talk about the value of learning a foreign language. That's a really cool segment that does dovetail quite nicely with the application process. And then we will talk also about working in college. What does work study look like? What's it like to have a job? It's about more than just the money that might surprise you. Thanks so much for being here today. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again next week with another great one. Take care.